Well, that was an interesting Dutch Grand Prix, wasn't it? We had absolute chaos, rain, literally and metaphorically, over Zandvoort, and in the end, Max Verstappen still decided to win. Hi, everybody. I'm Dre Harrison. Welcome back to the WTF1 Wrap, powered by MoneyGram. It's been a month, but I'm really glad to have you guys back. Thank you very much for your patience. We did kick the show back by about half an hour because of the red flag we got towards the back end of that race, because, as I joked on Twitter, the entire Atlantic Ocean pretty much dropped on Zandvoort between that lap 60 and 64, basically. Absolute madness that came around there. But we are back, and we are glad to have another episode of WTF1 Wrap, powered by our friends at MoneyGram. And of course, the Dutch Grand Prix may be over, but you still have time to enter the MoneyGram Fast Money giveaway. If you live in the US, just download the MoneyGram app, sign up for their updates, and if you've got $10,000 to split between some of you MoneyGram customers out there. So enter to have a shot of winning a share of that pot. So yeah, get on the MoneyGram app, ask for some updates if you haven't already. But I've left her hanging long enough. Welcome to the show. She's a fantastic presenter over in the world of sports cars, been in F1, been around everywhere, basically, and I've got some genuine presenting clout alongside me this time around. She's going to make me look a bit silly for the next 50 minutes, but very glad to have Amber Jones along with us. Amber, hello, welcome to the wrap. How's it going?
Thank you for having me. What an intro as well. Definitely not. I think you can teach me a lot in presenting. Don't you worry. But thank you so much for having me. So excited. And this race has been absolutely chaotic. There's so much to talk about, and genuinely, I've got no idea where to start.
Well, we got to get Max out of the way a little bit first. I mean, 9th win in a row. He's tied the great Ascari and Sebastian Vettel. We were hoping it wasn't going to happen, but it did to a degree, because we all want a little bit of drama and a little bit of excitement alongside our racing, of course. But luckily we got that. But again, Max completely untouchable at the front. But I don't think there'd have been any bonus points if you would have guessed Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly joining him on the podium as well. How about that?
Beautiful podium. Do you know what, though? With Max, I think people have a lot to say about the domination at the minute with Red Bull, don't they? And, fair enough, because, yeah, he is winning a lot of the races. But I think if you go down on the grid, there's so much happening that, we're not ignoring Max, because he's great, and I think we should respect him. But,
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, I did not expect. Alonso, yes, because he's a fantastic driver. So, do you know what? I knew he was going to be on there. He was going to be up top of the grid somewhere. But Gasly did not see that coming. So he started about, was it 12th? And he went all the way up to 3rd on the podium. Did not see that coming at all. But he's another fantastic driver. I think he just sort of slips into the background sometimes, and every now and then he shows off what he's got.
Exactly. And I mean, Alpine, it's been well documented how much they've been struggling in recent times. We just had their team principal, Otmar Szafnauer, and Armin Parmain, their sporting director, part ways just before the summer break at Belgium, in the middle of the weekend, which was not ideal, to say the least. They've been slipping down the constructors. But then Pierre Gasly goes from 12th to 3rd on the day, took advantage of the early chaos of switching from softs to intermediates, back to softs again, and then back to intermediates in the back end. And his pace was excellent all race long, and it wasn't just like he'd gotten there purely via chance. His pace was genuinely excellent. And yeah, wow, very, very impressive drive. One of the best of the year for me so far.
Yeah, because at the same time, I think when I was watching it, I think I was being quite harsh on Gasly, to be honest, because at first I was just yeah, he's getting up in a little bit of traffic, but there's not so much going on in his race. Obviously, he got a penalty as well. And I was just I don't know. And it was towards the end, I was yeah, what a fab drive, actually. I think my mind just flipped completely. And I was the fact that he did come from 12 and so much happened. And then you can look at it a different way, because a lot of the drivers that were starting at the top of the grid did fall all the way down. I was so good for Hamilton. I was gutted, heartbroken, gutted for Leclerc. That poor man. I feel so sorry for him. And Ferrari, what is going on with Ferrari, honestly? And they always say, the poor Charles, it's a day to forget. I think I've heard that in relation to Charles Leclerc about a million times. The poor man, when's it going to be a day to remember?
He's had 3 podiums. He swings on a dime. He was excellent at Belgium before the break, and he was fantastic that weekend. And then this weekend, he was awful. Just crashes in qualifying, and then I don't think the punishment fit the crime. I think it was very light contact he had with Norris on the opening lap, but then it just completely ruined his floor, completely destroyed his race weekend. It was an absolutely tragic affair for Charles Leclerc on that one. Such a shame that, again, what could have been a decent recovery, because I think both Ferraris were back in the top 6 before that early damage really kicked in, and could have been a decent day for Ferrari over their rivals, and in the end it's just ended up being, well, at least Sainz got in the top 5 again. That's okay. It's a solid result. I mean, we'll get to the tier list on him in a minute, but yeah, it's certainly worth a mention. Also, we've got to give a mention, Alex Albon, P8 in the Williams again. If anything, you might actually be slightly disappointed, because I think it could have been a bit more, but the chaos of that final round of intermediate pit stops before the red flag, he sunk a couple of spots, but Albon, tyre whisperer, at it again, over half. When the rain came down, he stuck it out on the softs, nursed the car around, and actually it came back to him. It was brilliant driving from Albon, I have to say. So impressive.
Well, I was quite worried for him, because he did start slipping down. I was like, oh no, Williams was so strong. And then obviously Sargent went out, and I was like gutted for Sargent as well, because I think you need to remind yourselves he is still a rookie, obviously. So he is going to make these little mistakes. The weather conditions were just so stupid, so hard for the drivers. So, like, you're going to see these things. But Albon, I was like, is he going to do it? I mean, Q3 was great for them. So I was like, okay, how is this going to play out in the race? But like you said, I think it was a great drive from Albon. And I think you mentioned in one of the past, like, race wraps that people didn't really appreciate Albon, but now they're starting to see his talent. And I think I didn't appreciate him when he first came into F1. I was like, yeah, he's good. Like, a lot of the drivers are good. They sort of have to be because they're in Formula One. But yeah, he's really showing himself off at the minute.
This is, especially given this was not a track that Williams said they were going to be strong around. They liked the faster, more sweeping tracks where they can make advantage of the fact their car's not very draggy. It's very aerodynamically efficient. This was a much tighter, twistier track, and Albon was just points level competitive all weekend long. Very, very impressive stuff from him. And I completely agree. I think this is a guy that I think absolutely, understandably, people were down on after his Red Bull stint. It didn't go well for him over there. I think we all know that. But he's... what I've often said is that I think he's picked up where George Russell left off when he left from Williams to go to Mercedes, and I think Albon's just taken leadership of that team immensely well. And again, 4 very precious points for Williams. It's a very tight fight down the bottom of the Constructors' Championship, and both cars in Q3 for the first time since 2017 for Williams. So very, very impressive stuff all around. Should we crack open the tier list, Amber, and start?
Why not?
Start breaking down some of these performances. Let's pull
so
forth.
Excited.
Now, before anybody questions this, yes, unfortunately, Daniel Ricciardo... I don't say unfortunately, Daniel Ricciardo is still here. We're going to pretend he's Liam Lawson for the elements of this tier list, because unfortunately, the man injured himself in practice, broke a bone in his hand, broke a metacarpal, hitting the turn 3 wall on Friday. Get well soon, Daniel, on that one. But Liam Lawson, should we get Lawson out of the way now and just... I think the fact he didn't wreck his car, he brought the car home in one piece. Yeah. Absolutely dreadful conditions. Yeah. Like, awful conditions for a first Grand Prix. Finished, I think, was it 13th? 13th on debut? I'm going to say A for Lawson.
Oh, really?
I don't think you could reasonably ask for a better weekend for an emergency stand-in on Saturday notice. I think that's about as much as you could reasonably ask for. That car's not really a point scorer unless it's a really, really good day for him. I think 13th on debut, kept his nose reasonably dry, didn't really make any mistakes. I think that's for an emergency stand-in, I think that's very, very good, personally. What do you reckon, Amber?
Well, to be honest, I was just wondering where to put him, because I was just like, that overtake with obviously Charles Leclerc, I thought that was great. I mean, yeah, obviously then Charles came back in and took it back. But
He's learning.
I was so happy when that happened, though, because, like, loved Charles for ages, loved Liam Lawson in F2 as well. So, like, I was so happy to see that battle. But yeah, I think he did a great job, to be honest. He was expecting a very boring, clean race for himself, but he was out there fighting. So, yeah, we'll put him in A.
Yeah, I think the chat is largely in agreement. Hi, chat. Good to see you with us. So please, again, chip in with your opinions as ever. I may change a grade up or down depending on your takes and your influence. So don't feel like you guys won't go unnoticed here. Darth Trenton says Lawson had almost no practice. I think finishing the race in 13th, that is good. I agree with A. Mike Cabela says A as well. Unprepared, especially in conditions like this, and not only to lead the car to the checkered flag, but also in a good position. A. Only FP3 to prepare to finish the race and qualifying in tricky conditions. Also P13, brilliant effort in limited time. I think the chat's in full agreement with us. I think A for Liam Lawson is very, very good for a first. I think we've got a B from anti-game, but I think I'm going to stick with A for the time being on Liam Lawson, being represented by Daniel Ricciardo, and of course, hopefully he'll be back in the car soon enough. Let's get some of the obvious ones out of the way. Max, S. Let's just move along from that one. Again, virtually perfect. Pole position, win, dominant once again. 9 in a row. I think the world will stop turning at a certain point if Max isn't in S tier. Because every time since we started this series, he's been in S every single round because he has won every single round since we started. It's incredible. Again,
what's it going to take for him to not be an S? Because I feel like if something happened that wasn't his fault, would that be his fault to then not be an S?
It's a good point. It's a good point, yeah. Like, what would it take? Like, you'd have to make a genuine driver error somewhere for him not to end up in S tier at this point, which is unlikely given how impervious he has driven. I love that side of the chat says, drop Max to A, he didn't win by 40 seconds. Tempted, but no. We'll keep him in S. I think I'm going to put the entire podium in S tier. I think Alonso, again... was exceptional. Was pretty much flawless. Again, can't really argue with that. Second place, and given that Aston Martin's had a bit of a slip in terms of recent results, that's a fantastic second place for Fernando Alonso. A brilliant 18 points, not only with his fight with Lewis Hamilton for third in the championship, but also Aston's fight for second in the constructors, because not the best day at the office for Mercedes. We'll get to them in a bit, but I think it's safe to say, Amber, Fernando's in S.
Oh, I agree fully. I have so much respect for Fernando Alonso, so there's no debates on that one at all. Straight in S.
Yeah. Also, shout out to SHT in the chat. It says, Staffy here. Alonso's first fastest lap in an F1 race since Hungary 2017. So there's a fun one there for you. So, yeah. A bonus point for that as well. So 19 on the day for Fernando Alonso. And I think it's fair to say we're putting Pierre Gasly in S as well for the first time this season. That was superb for third as well. Brilliant drive in the Alpine. I think that's fair to say. We've spoken about Gasly a bit, to be fair, already. But, just another phenomenal job. Chat, this one might be a bit more debatable. Do I put Albon in S tier as well? Is it S or is it A for Albon? Because he actually qualified in 4th. Like... Is the drop from the qualifying to the race enough for me to say A or S? I'm leaning towards S here. What do you reckon, Amber? What do you reckon? You going the other way?
I was going to say A, just because I want to see, like, it was great, and he is a fab driver, but I think there's still a bit more wiggle room we can see from him, you know what I mean? So I think I'd put him in A, but see what the chat's saying.
I'll leave him in there for A at the time being. I'll come back to him. I think that one's... I'll wait to see what some of the chat says on that, because the chat takes a bit of time to catch up. Hi A, says Sai. Miguel says Albon doesn't deserve an S. Okay.
Yeah, I do see. That's why I think I'm not super convinced to then put him in S. I need to be really convinced. So I'd say keep him at A for the time being.
Luke666 says, yes, Albon in S. It was a Williams, man. No way he was going to keep it that high. Yeah. SHT says close to S, but A. Mike says I think he deserves an S. Tough one. I'm inclined to think A+, but right on the edge. If you say S, that's fine. Depends if we go in by driver performance or team performance as a whole, says Jordan Goodwin. Driver alone S, team overall A because of the strategy slips. So the strategy did play up a little bit in that. Do we give him the benefit of the doubt and say S on this one? Because I see a couple... This is a really tough one.
I know. I think this one, like, you could really do either or. I think this is more personal opinion, you know. I don't think there's an obvious answer. I think it's do people think that he really deserves it or not. And like you said, you'll be like, oh my God, he's done a fantastic drive today. But I'm stuck. I think I would put him in A for now. And then if like we've got too many people in A, then I'd be like, actually, no, he was so much better than whoever. So let's move him back up to S.
Okay, we'll keep him. I'll put him on the far left side of
Just
A
look the
tier.
Yeah.
He's right on the borderline. I'll get back to Albon. We'll see how we feel of that at the end of the show. I'm going to say Carlos Sainz in A. Is that fair to say, given he was 5th on the day and generally kept his nose dry, came through the field reasonably well?
I don't know, right. Do you know what? I've got quite a controversial opinion on Sainz because I think he's a great driver. He really is. Obviously, he's been doing a little bit better.
I sense a butt coming here.
But for me, I think he's just a very like he's safe, but like he's a better driver than Bottas, for example. Bottas is quite a safe driver. You know, you can trust him to get you in whatever point you really want him to be in. But like Sainz has got a bit more edge than Bottas. But there's something about Sainz for me that I'm like, I want to see a lot more. Maybe it is just Ferrari at the minute. So I think A is correct, but I'd also be thinking maybe B because it was a bit of an easy race.
My general opinion with you on Sainz is I agree. I think Leclerc is your upside guy. I think Sainz is a very good floor guy.
Yeah.
But I don't... Leclerc is the guy that I think gets the most out of that package. When everything clicks. I think Leclerc is just a slightly better driver overall. I think A is the right spot for Sainz on this occasion. Again, kept his nose clean, came up the field reasonably well. 5th place, I think, is a pretty fair reflection of where Ferrari is at the moment. I think that's overall a pretty good day for him. So I'm going to keep him there. Now, you're a big Leclerc fan, Amber. What are we... we kind of have to put Leclerc in D, haven't we?
I mean, maybe C. I just feel so bad for him. He's such an amazing driver, and I'd love to see him in a different team now. Like, I don't know
Really?
what he could be in because I just don't think. I mean, I'd love to see him in Mercedes, but I don't think that's really going to happen anytime soon. I'd love to see him in McLaren, genuinely. But
Not a bad spot for him.
So,
So the thing is, there is an argument for C because I don't think the floor damage punishment really fit the crime. I think it was a very minor tap, and I think he was pretty unlucky to have it hurt that car as much as it did.
Exactly. So I'm thinking C, sold. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Miguel says D, crashed in quali as well.
No, it is hot. Right, I'm going to take away my biases. Like, realistic. Do you know what? He's not on top form these days, which is quite sad. And it is the car, and I think it's also him as a driver as well. So C, because he's my favourite driver. But if I'm going to take that away and be really, really, really realistic, what's going on, Shaw? Like, come on. D. So
D.
Are we going with D?
Yeah, I think I'm going to put him in D on this one. Sorry, Charles, this one's on you, buddy. It was again. I think he was a bit unlucky, given what happened to his car for what he did. But that's racing for you sometimes. Let's go Hamilton next. Like P6 in the end on the day for him.
Hamilton loves an end.
I think A. I think A's about right. I know the qualifying didn't help, obviously, but I think that's a pretty solid comeback for Lewis, all things considered. I think A's about right for Lewis. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like probably not S because we weren't like astounded by him, but it was a great drive. Like I say, he loves an end. So for some reason, when it gets towards the end of the race, he is like, oh my God, the race is ending. Let's just give it all I've got now. So I think, yeah, that's reasonable. I think it was quite good from him, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so. I think A's about right for him. Couple more before we get to the break real quick. Let's do... This is going to be an interesting one. Sergio Perez. Now, what do we do with this one? Because Perez was actually not too bad in the race on this occasion. His pace wasn't bad. He was definitely behind Max, but it wasn't like Belgium where he was completely blown out of the water. He got back up to second place. He did that. He was excellent in coming in at that first stop for intermediate tyres. That was good strategy. Yeah, and then he made that mistake before the red flag came out. Got the penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Where the hell do I rank Sergio Perez? This is a really weird one because I think on paper, I think he was pretty good on this race, and he's going to end up fourth in the end. And the pit stop errors of his own making. I was tempted to say I think it's between A and B, Amber. How do you feel about it?
I think if you don't compare him to Max, then maybe A. But I think because we do have to compare him to Max a little bit because, you know, they're in the same team, same car, might be different setups and things like that. But comparing him to Max, what is going on? Even Toto Wolff complained, I've got no idea what's going on with Perez because of 1.3 seconds between them in quali. What is going on with him? He's really struggled this season, so it was an all right race for him, but then, like, why is Max not making the same mistakes that he's making? So I'm going to say B.
I think he should have been a comfortable second. I think he was a little bit unlucky with that rain shower, but also the speed in the pit lane kind of cancelled that out. I think B's about right for Perez. I think the chat's largely in agreement. B, poor error at the end. High B, no more than a B thanks to that speeding at the end, says Mike. Jordan says, Red Bull tried to ruin his race with his pit stop. Then he went and ruined it himself. B. Which I think is quite funny.
It's so true.
Yeah, very much so. I think B's about right for Checo on this one. Not a terrible weekend, but by all accounts, but certainly could have been a bit better on the day. What do we do with George Russell?
George Russell, I thought he was actually putting in quite a strong race throughout the middle. Obviously, Mercedes kind of ruined the strategy a little bit, so it's not his fault, I think. And then obviously it was not great towards the end.
No, bit of a racecraft error on that one. He tried to if gap car Lando Norris, and that was not going to go well for him, and that kind of put his car out at the end, and that was kind of George's fault from what I saw on the replay. I think that was more on him than Lando. I think C for George.
Yeah, because I think he's making more mistakes now, to be honest, than he did when he was at Williams. So yeah, I think a C is quite fair. I wish he was doing better. I wish he was up there in the A and B, maybe not S yet, but unfortunately, yeah, it's probably going to have to be a C, isn't it?
I think so too on that one. We got 10 names out of the 20 on the tier list. Let's quickly go over for our MoneyGram send of the day for our favourite overtake of the race. And now, Amber, I gave you a little bit of a heads up on this one. What was your send of the day? What was your favourite overtake you saw out there, George? We actually had quite a decent selection to go with on this one. Zandvoort was surprisingly racy.
Yeah, because normally it's like a really hard track to overtake on, but there was so many overtakes. I mean, Alonso put in like loads of great ones, but I thought I'm not going to go with Alonso because like I was thinking the whole time I was watching the race, I was like, great overtake, great overtake. But I think the one that shocked me was Piastri on Bottas.
That was a fun one. That was a huge send.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I thought, wow, I was like rogue, aggressive, but great. It was clean as well, to be honest. So I thought maybe that one because it surprised me the most. I think the Alonso ones, I was just there like, yes, what a man. We know he can.
Yeah.
But Piastri, I was like, yeah, come on. Great driver, setting himself up for a great future in F1.
It's hard not to be impressed by him. And look, it's technically for best overtake, but we do call the award the send of the day. So I think it's only fitting. And I was going to say Alonso's double pass on the opening lap because I thought going down the inside there was a turn 3 and that banking over was pretty brave. But that was a big eyebrow raiser to see Oscar Piastri literally go full send on Valtteri Bottas. So you know what, given it's called the send of the day, let's make it Oscar Piastri's send on Valtteri Bottas. That's our MoneyGram send of the day. Congratulations, Oscar Piastri, on that one. And you know what, given we're talking about the man right now, let's go back to the tier list and let's rank Oscar Piastri here. He was 9th in the end. Not a bad day. Again, not a million miles behind Lando Norris, which I think is kind of where he should be for what McLaren's at the moment. I think B for Piastri is kind of decent. I mean, he didn't qualify particularly well. He kind of made a bit of a Horlicks of it. Ended up roughly about the same place in the end anyway. But I don't think McLaren were as strong as they've been in the last couple of rounds in terms of race pace. So for me, I'm kind of thinking B for Piastri here. Is that fair?
Yeah, but I mean, I was quite gutted to see McLaren not do as well this race, but I think just because it was so chaotic and tyre strategies and everything was going on, I'm like, okay, fair enough. They weren't as strong, but oh, I don't know because I was really impressed by him the whole time. That's why I'm like, does he deserve to be an A? But obviously, like, it's only ninth, so it's not like amazing, but it's still in the points. So, oh,
I think the chat is screaming B at me. Like,
oh, okay. We'll
yeah.
stick with that. We'll stick with the
I've,
people. The people.
we'll go with the people in this case. We'll say B on this occasion. So Simon, Miguel, Jordan, Mike, and Darfren all saying B for Piastri. I think that's about right. Okay, another controversial one here. Yuki Tsunoda.
Right.
I kind of want to put Yuki in A here, and the reason why I say that is because he was running eighth for the majority of that race. He did a fantastic job holding Lando Norris behind him. I think he was clearly in a faster car for most of that middle stint of the race. And then I think he was kind of screwed at the end because they held him out on tyres for rain, which came along far too late in the end. I think Tsunoda's in the top 10, if not for that late penalty. I don't know. Is like I'm tempted to say A here, even with the penalty, because again, I think he got a penalty late on for a collision with George Russell or something along those lines. I kind of want to say A because he was so good until that error. Is that fair, Amber? I mean, like chat, help me out as well on this one. But
I think it's quite a hard one because I think when he first came into F1, people had a lot to say about him. He was quite aggressive and towards the team as well. And like his style was quite aggressive. He made loads of mistakes. And I think, this season I think he's quickly learning. So that impressed me. And like you say, I think it was a good drive today. I mean, yeah, I'd stick between A and B, but again, it's like I'm struggling really because when I know which category straight away is when they've really, really, really impressed me. He kind of impressed me today. So I think I'm really bad at this, aren't I? I love this game. I love this game.
it's fun.
Oh, for me, I'd say B, but if the general consensus is an A, and they're on.
I'm reading the comments. I think Yuki was screwed up by strategy, said Darth Trenton. He went about 50 laps on a set of softs. Lennon GNU came in, says A. Darth Trenton says, I can't decide between A and B, but he defended really well as well. So I think the chat's having the same headache you're having, Amber, where it's between A and B. I kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say the strategy did him in more than anything else.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say A for Tsunoda on this one. I'm gonna give him the higher grade on this occasion. So I think Yuki was excellent today. I think he was just really unlucky on how that strategy played out in the end.
And that is fair enough as well, isn't it? Because of all the strategies. Like, I feel so bad for the teams as well, because how are we meant to keep up with that? So I think that is fair enough. Then if it's a strategy problem, we can give them a bit of room, can't we, to stay in the A box?
I think so. Let's see. Well, let's get Logan Sargent out of the way. Poor Logan. I was really happy for him to make Q3. The first time he's made Q3 in his F1 career, first time an American has made the top 10 of a race since 1993. Like, was the last time an American cracked the top 10 to start a race, but he binned it early on again, just like he binned it in Q3. Logan, no. Like, you're not meant to put a wheel on the paint.
I know. I was like, at first I was like, oh, it's typical, it's the rookies and all of this. But then I was like, I do feel really bad for him because I think he's got a lot to give as a driver, but he's still getting used to that car. But then it's again when you start comparing to the other drivers in that team. But then again, obviously, Albon is more experienced. Oh no. Albon's more experienced. So, I'm like, oh, I think Sargent did do a good job up until that point, but he's a rookie, so he is going to make mistakes. So I'm just like,
hang on, I've got a note from Mike in the chat that says James Vowles confirmed that his crash was caused by mechanical failure. It wasn't a driver error. So I'm taking Mike at his word, which Mike's a good friend of mine, so I assume he is. If it's a mechanical failure, I will bump him up to C. I think that's only fair. Because normally I put technical DNFs in C. That's just my general rule of thumb. So if it's mechanical, I think C is fine for Sargent. I'll actually, thanks for that, Mike. I do appreciate that in the chat. Yeah, it looks like it was a mechanical error. It says James confirms Logan Sargent lost hydraulic pressure before his crash, meaning no power steering, and he just sailed wide. That was from Chris Medland on Twitter as well. He's one of the best in the business journalism-wise. So if that's come from him, I will take that as kosher. So yeah, hydraulic failure. So that's really unfortunate for Logan, actually, which is such a shame. So yeah, there you go. It looks like a hydraulic failure. So we'll put Sargent in C for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, he did say, didn't he? He was like, I had no idea what happened. He said that on the team radio, and he was like, I've got no clue why I've just sort of spun off there. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Dodgerin says you dropped like a rock straight to P17 at the start. C at best, purely based on quality. So if crash wasn't his fault, then yeah, C is fine. So yeah, there we go on that one. Let's go to Lando Norris. We haven't done Lando yet. 7th in the end for Lando. Was in the wars all race on this occasion. I think he goes in B with Piastri. Like, I think he was about the same. I don't think it's A grade standard compared to the guys who've got in there already, because we know McLaren's a bit better than a lot of those teams around them in that tier. So I would say, I think B with Piastri is about right. I don't think there's enough to separate them. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I agree, to be honest, because I think, like, obviously Lando's such a great driver, and we can actually see a lot more from him. I think he did really well today under those really tricky conditions. So I think B is quite standard as well. If they were like miles apart from each other, then I think Lando would probably be in an A. But yeah, I think B, they didn't do like fantastic, but they did quite well.
Jordan makes a good point. C for Norris, should have been more firm with the team and pitted. He knows better after Russia. Whoa! A shot fired there from Jordan. Don't see how you could put Albon in A and Lando in B, says Miguel. Okay.
Yeah, but if you look at it, obviously the McLaren's a better car than the Williams, so
yeah, pound for pound, I would say Albon's a bit stronger to get that car in the top 8 than compared to McLaren as well. I would say in response to that,
yeah.
I think that's a fair counterpoint. I think B's about right. I think Norris did come back well, but yes, it was an error. He didn't come in straight away. That's certainly something to consider. So I think them in the same grade, despite Norris having a slightly better result, is probably fair, is what I would say.
Because Norris is normally, I think we'd put him up in the A or the S in like a lot of races. So the fact he's in B, he's actually downgraded a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think B Fernando's B Fernando, says James. No, stop that. Fair, says Miguel. I think that's fair. Fair enough. Should we? Joe was out. He put it in the wall.
He's doing so well.
I want to say C for Joe purely because he was on a bad strategy. He was running the top 10 for a good while, and then he was one of the first of the guinea pigs when the rain really came down. I normally, if you're out through a driver error, I normally put you in D. I kind of want to say C for Joe and Bottas, just on this occasion.
I think we can let off quite a few of the drivers due to like strategies and the conditions and this chaotic race. So I see what you mean if you're probably not going to put them in a D. I think he actually had quite a good race for what he was put under, obviously, until the end. So I'd say a C as well, to be honest. I don't think I'd be as harsh as a D.
I agree. I think C's right for Joe. I think you got to remember he also did a lot of that race on the medium tire when everybody else was on softs as well. So he was a bit compromised in terms of raw speed. And we all know the Alfa Romeo is not a particularly fast race car at the moment. So if it was a driver error, it's a very harsh one to say that because it bucketed it down out of nowhere.
Exactly.
And I think a little bit of a reprieve I think is deserved on that one. I'm gonna do the same for Bottas. I think C's probably about right for him as well.
I wish he was higher because I think he has the potential to be higher. But yeah, like he's just too safe, Bottas, I think. And obviously, like strategies and things come into play. But he is just. I want to see him push. We saw this at Mercedes where like he was just floating through. You know, he was still up there because he had a great car at the time. But yeah, Bottas for me, I think he's always kind of going to be like a C or a B.
Yeah, he's not had any real, like, barn burner drive since probably the opening round in Bahrain, where I think he was 8th on that occasion. I think it's hard to stand out in that Alfa Romeo team right now. It's just the car just isn't particularly good, and yeah, they're performing to about where they should be, because Bottas was 15th, and if Alfa's like the 7th or like 8th or 9th best car in the field, then 15th is about right anyway. So it's just
a driver like him as well. I think it's just safe.
Yeah. I did write a mid-season tier list on the WTF1 website about this, and I literally said that Alfa Romeo were the Participation Trophy Award winners for 2023. They are just there.
It's true.
We have confirmed they are there. They are in attendance. they show up. They have performed.
Just having a great time.
They're just there. They're just vibing like most of those Dutch fans were. Lance Stroll, again, was just sort of here for most of this weekend. 11th in the end, with Alonso on the podium. Stroll, again, kind of has to be in C at best here, because he's just there. Like, I'm not saying he has to beat Alonso every weekend. Alonso's one of the best of all time. He's going to get the best out of whatever car you put him in. Alonso is a special talent. But Stroll is just so frustrated. He's got the best car he's ever had in his career, comfortably, and he's scoring no points. And there was no real shenanigans that really played up in towards his race. I might even say D for Stroll again, even though he's in 11th. Like Miguel says C. I forgot Stroll was driving in the comments, what was quite funny. Amber, what do you reckon?
I'm glad that you said that, because I didn't want to be really harsh, but I was thinking D. I'm so sorry. He really just never impresses me. Any races, like realistically, I'd love to see Leclerc in the Aston Martin. That's never going to happen. Of course, Stroll's always going to be in that Aston Martin, but I don't really think he does a lot. He's another one that just sort of floats through the races. Sometimes has a few spins and a few driver errors and mistakes here and there, but most of the time just gets through it quite easy. And I just think you need to bring something different to the race, something else to Formula One. You can't just sort of get in the car and just be like, yeah, cool. The difference to Alfa Romeo, because I feel like he's not even vibing. He's just like literally just there. And that's it.
He's inarguably the second best car in Formula One. Between second and third, I would say, depending on the weekend. Yeah. He should not be finishing 11th on pace alone. That's just not good enough for that team. That team is going to want more. And I think he's now something like 120 points behind Alonso this season. It's just not good enough. It's alarming on Stroll on this occasion. And the thing is, he is capable of pulling out good drives on occasion. It just doesn't happen consistently enough. It's really frustrating. Ocon, 10th. He got in the points on that Alpine. Was kind of caught out at the end by being on extreme wets, bless him. Like, someone needs to tell him, extreme wet conditions don't exist in Formula 1 anymore. If it's wet enough where an intermediate doesn't work, chances are someone's in a wall, or we've already red flagged it because it's too wet.
Well, at first I was like, yeah, do you know what? Maybe because the rain is so heavy that might work. And then looking at every single team and driver, all intermediates, I was like, what have they done? What have they done? So
still got a point though. I want to say B for Ocon.
Yeah, well, I did think he did quite a good drive as well, but
yeah, I think B's about fine. I think B's fine. I think right in the middle. It's
yeah.
I think that's about right.
I think only because he was 10th. If he was a little bit higher, then I'd probably put him in an A. But
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, we'll stick with B.
I think given that Alpine are clearly like the 5th best team most weekends, I think 10th is about par, and it was a fine drive. The extreme wet gamble didn't really cost them too much in the end anyway, so I think that's fine. That just leaves the Haas team, and 12th for Hulkenberg, 14th for Magnussen. I think 12th for Hulkenberg's actually not too bad given where Haas are at the moment. Hulkenberg's been the better Haas driver. Magnussen was playing up the rear. Like, I'm thinking between B and C. Chat, feel free to chip in on this one again as well, because I'm not sure.
I think it is a hard one, because I think Magnussen's always 50-50. You don't really know what you're going to get with him. He can be absolutely amazing because he's very aggressive as a driver, but then sometimes that really doesn't work in his favour. Hulkenberg, another one, safe. You can trust him, really. Is he going to be out of this world? No. Are his drives stellar? Not really. But yeah, I think it was just a bit of a not much to say, quite a clean one for them. So I'm thinking C's for both.
C's for both. Russell, Sargent, Zhou, Bottas, the Hasses.
Well, yeah.
I think that fits better than B, where it's Norris, Piastri, Ocon, and Perez.
Well, now I'm quite confused because in the C category, a lot of them had like spins and lockups and all of this stuff, whereas like Magnussen and Hulkenberg didn't. But then they weren't as good as the others, so in B.
Do we split them and do we give Hulk the B because he was the stronger Haas on the day, given he was 12th?
Yeah.
I think that looks better. I'm happy with that.
Let's see.
Yeah. Hulk for bringing it back, K-Mag for letting it slip. Says Jordan Goodwin. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. Given to split them on position, I think that's about right. Okay, so the final list as it stands, because this is the chance for any last minute changes. Verstappen, Alonso, Gasly in S. Albon, do we keep Albon in A or do we put him in S as well?
I'm gonna still stick with A. You know.
I think he's in A. I'm happy with him in A. I'm gonna keep him there. I'm happy with that. So A for Albon, Lawson, Sainz, Hamilton, and Tsunoda. We've got Perez, the McLarens, Ocon, and Hulkenberg in B. We've got Russell, Sargent, Zhou, Bottas, Magnussen in C, and then Leclerc and Stroll in D. I'm reasonably happy with that.
Yeah, because I think it was so challenging. This was never going to be easy to put them in tiers because it was absolutely crazy. And it's like, that was his fault, but then that wasn't his fault. And it was just going to be a bit crazy. It was a chaotic race. It's going to be a chaotic tier structure.
Jordan is adamant, saying Yuki's got to go down to B. You can't be beaten by a debut teammate and be on the same level. I think in the context of what Lawson's debut was, given he was an emergency stand-in, Lawson's going to get a higher grade and I think he's going to get a bigger, in my opinion, I think he gets a bigger benefit of the doubt than Tsunoda, because I think Tsunoda was tracking towards an S, personally, until the strategy call, which wasn't his fault, and then that penalty at the end, maybe, I'd have to look at it again to see if it was harsh. Check the website, I can change them posthumously, I can potentially change them after the fact as well. I might do that, but I'm happy to give Tsunoda the A because I think he played less of a role in his poor weekend overall. I'm happy with that, personally.
No, I think I am too, to be honest. Like I mentioned before, I think he has been doing quite good this season, so I think it's quite fair enough to put him in an A.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with how that is overall.
I feel like you might change Albon maybe to an S later on.
No, I think the top three were the top three performances on the day, and I think they were worthy of where they were. I think Albon is if anybody said Albon was in S, I wouldn't argue with you. Like, I think there's absolutely a valid argument you can make on that one, but I'm happy with that as it is. I've got to draw the line somewhere, and we've had 3 or 4 that I think were marginal, where you could argue one tier or the other, definitely. But I think that'll just about do it on the WTF1 wrap for this episode. Amber, please tell the good people where they can find you.
They can find me on my socials on like Instagram, TikTok. It'll be Amber Sophia Jones on TikTok, and I actually change it quite a lot, though it might be double S or it might not have a double S. You'll find me anyway if you type in.
I copied the Instagram page on the screen. I think I spelt it correctly, like Sophia with 1 A and then 2 S's on the end. I think that's how it's right.
Yeah.
Search for Amber Jones. You can't miss her. Please give her a little WTF1 bump from us. Thank you all very, very much for watching. Do very much appreciate it. We'll be back next week for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Looking forward to that one as ever. The Festival of Speed is always a fun one, so looking forward to that. Will Max Verstappen make history and become the first man to win 10 Grand Prix in a row? It's never happened before, and well, the way Max is going, and Yeah, the way he's going, he's certainly got the whole world in his hands. Until then, I've been Dre Harrison. She's been Amber Jones. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Thank you, man. Sayonara. Take care.